Welcome back to the Film Alchemist podcast, the show where we take the movies we love, break them apart to find out what gives them their magic. Almost punching my internet off the cabinet magic. Today I'm joined by my friend, co-host, and fucking fat-fingered guy.
If either of us have fat fingers between us, you have got sausages, my friend.
The sausages? Yeah, maybe. That's fine. But yeah, my fat.
But yes, I'm Alex Dandino.
When I do this accent, it's gonna devolve into like a Southern Clueless.
It will.
So I apologize in advance. Before today's exciting episode, we'll tell you guys what's going on soon. Business people, it's official. We're on Patreon, patreon.com/FilmAlchemistPod. This is a great way you guys can help support the show. You can help us keep paying for the things we need to pay for to do this show. You can help this show grow. You can also have this show be molded in your own image, right? You can have a say in what we are recording and how the show moves forward. So we got a huge exclusive library. You get votes on the movies you want to be in there. We got commentaries. We got mini-series on Tales from the Crypt going on right now, which has been a good time. You can even have a double feature that you program available. So if you would be so kind, that's patreon.com/FilmAlchemistPod, the best way to help us help you by making the show even better. The YouTube Film Alchemist, we're finally caught up, I think, on the video library. So make sure you go over to YouTube so you can see us yelling at each other. That's always fun. The email, filmalchemistpod@gmail.com. We're on all the socials you're on. We're easy to get a hold of. We would love to hear from you. Let's say the times are tough and you can't donate any money to the show. We get it, man. No big deal. We understand. Thank you for listening. We could ask you for one more small favor. Something cheap and easy you can do. Something free, in fact. You can leave a rating and review on every app you find this podcast. That helps us defeat the algorithmic fucking civil war hanging over our heads. So that would be appreciated, right? 5-star. Why do you like us? 5-star. Sentence. These guys are so fucking hot. Hot. Neither here nor there. I would never not like these guys anymore. I'm just brainstorming. We're spitballing. Also, this is something easy you guys could do. As long as you're not if you're not rowing with your friends, send them a text message specifically about one of the shows you like to one of your movie-loving friends. And then that will also ensure that your friendship doesn't go tits up, as in the movie we're discussing today. All right. So I think we started this maybe last year, and we dug it. So when the Oscars are rolling around, right? I'm a huge Oscar person. Alex is not, but he's kind enough.
This year, I'll say this year, very much so. I don't know why this year I feel like the stakes are like there for me, but I'm feeling it this year.
There's some I really want to win. But
I really
your
care
idea
this year,
was a great one, right? Why don't we just pick the one or two movies we both like and just gush about those rather than like doing predictive stuff and, that kind of shit. This has been the year of Oscar movies where it's like, why the fuck is this 2.5+ hours long? Almost every fucking Oscar movie I saw could have had an hour chopped out of it. I'm looking at you, Tar. Absolutely looking at you.
More like hour and a half for Tar.
Argentina, 1985. And you fucking Elvis being over 80 minutes long is an absolute fucking insult to everyone who's ever watched a movie.
I have one major stipulation with Elvis, and it's because it ends poorly. It should end with him on the toilet, and the fact that it doesn't is a goddamn travesty.
Yeah. Also, maybe we don't need more than 80 minutes of Marilyn Monroe being traumatized. I'm just saying, this was the year of movies where it's like, can we bring it down a notch? Can you just make these like a tight 100 minutes, and they'd all be 1 to 2 stars better? Right. Neither here nor there. To us, there were two movies that stood far and above the rest of the competitors, right? Right. And that was The Banshees of Inisherin and Everything Everywhere All at Once. Most years, Banshees would have been my favorite movie that came out. It just so happened to drop on the year where Everything Everywhere All at Once came out, which to me is about as transcendent a film experience as I've had. Maybe going back to like when I saw Black Swan in the theater, right? Like fully emotionally invested and devastated watching that movie. Happy that I'm somehow involved and in love with cinema just by watching that, right?
Right.
Banshees was not that experience. But it, in its own way, right? It's one of those movies that it has this really kind of beautiful high concept idea that brings it all the way down to the very normal and mundane human level. And so it really gets at that stuff of, the best cinema makes you happier to engage with being a human being, right? And Banshees definitely has that. It's fucking hilarious. It's brutally dark. It's got a lot of things to say.
Yeah.
But in a way that is still always fun. It's a really interesting act that they accomplished through the entire movie. So, Alex, opening thoughts on the Banshees of Inisherin.
Yeah, I mean, it's just Martin McDonagh doing like what he does every time. I think what's interesting is I always feel when I'm watching a Martin McDonagh movie, but mostly when he's doing movies that don't take place in America. Mm-hmm. This is how I feel. There's something infinitely more authentic.
Yeah.
Like 3 Billboards is great. I liked 3 Billboards, and 7 Psychopaths is great. Like, it's not like he doesn't make great stories, but there is something about this one and like In Bruges and certain aspects of other portions of the story that just feel much more authentic in a way that I don't think, not to say that, oh, well, he's Irish, English, and so therefore he's only able to tell those stories. Not it at all. But there is something about this as like a parable, which makes a lot of sense to me, that I like I guess what I like about it is the Aesop's fableness of it, but like the fucked up fableness of this whole thing is like, don't talk to me, I'll cut my fingers off. It's like, what lesson am I supposed to learn from that?
Yeah, there's just this layer of authenticity on top of that just comes through, right? It's a little more transportative in that effect.
I think the thing that I like, the thing that strikes me the most about this movie is, so it takes place during the Irish Civil War, which I think happened during this takes place in 1923 during the Irish Civil War. So in its own capacity, it is this sort of interesting microcosm, and it comes together at the end. And again, this is because Martin McDonagh is a great writer, but that does seem to be this sort of microcosm of like what's happening on the mainland, because this is an island, like it's a fictional island, but the idea is that,
and we should drop a big spoiler alert. This will come out. Sorry, I'm gonna fucking die. I'm gonna fucking choke on my own fucking fat fingers. This is gonna come out before a lot of people might have caught this, getting ready for the Oscars. So big spoiler alert.
Right. It's on HBO Max. You can definitely watch it. And Prime, I believe.
And you should fucking watch it.
And you should fucking watch this movie.
You should fucking watch this movie.
Either way, like, I think the feeling of inevitability and the eventuality of despair, disaster, whatever, looms so well because of the historical context of the movie. And I normally don't give a shit about this kind of stuff, but the historical context of the movie itself is so interesting that it looms over this fictional island like this huge, like we already have a dark cloud over the movie. This is like the darker cloud on top of the dark cloud that's just like making everything this like darkly comedic, everything has a darkly comedic beat to it, because there's, if you go to the mainland, you might just get fucking blown up. Who knows?
Right.
It's really interesting.
This is kind of where I want to start. You kind of hit on it, right? The first time I saw this movie in theaters, I was just fucking loving it. Then the ending hits, right? Essentially saying, and again, spoilers. Had you stayed in your house, we'd have called it quits. But since you didn't, we don't, right? And he apologizes. I don't fucking care.
Right.
And I think the line he actually says, right? There's some things there's no coming back from. I think that's a good thing, right? Podrick is officially the fucking broken, quiet man of Inisherin that he wasn't.
Yeah.
I gotta say, the first time I saw this movie this ending did nothing for me. Like, left me a little unhappy as I left the theater for that experience. It felt like a real cement shoe on what had been this wonderful experience. So, having seen it again and put it in the context of this greater Civil War subtext, right? Walk me through what you're thinking at the end of this movie. Do you like it? Does it work for you? What elements of it stand out the most?
So I've seen this 3 times now. I've watched it 3 times. And to me, every time I watch this movie, because I agree, like the first time I finished it, the ending, I was like, what a weird, like, dour note to end this movie on. Like, you're just like, this is like, I don't want to be friends anymore either. I'm out of here. Like, there is like this like sense of like the finality of this friendship. You're like, is that really the ending of this movie? We're just going to walk away and be done with it? Like, okay. But watching it again and then watching it a third time, what I realize is not walking away and being done with a friendship at all. Like, that's not even close to being what I should have gleaned the first time I watched it. What this is about is accepting that this animosity just stands. And there's some things that can't be, there's bells that cannot be unrung in this life sometimes. And, you know, whether it's donkeys choking on fingers or just somebody who is legitimately like, I do not need to spend time with you anymore. Because look, you and I have had plenty of people in our lives that we've met and been like, I want to spend as little time as possible.
We'll get to the mission statement of Brendan Gleeson. I got a lot of thoughts on that. But
yeah. But to me, it really gets to the core of this story, which is there's some things that just exist in this world that not necessarily are evil or angry all the time, but just exist in a state of animosity. That's
right.
all.
Well, there's a lot of righteous line drawing. But I think the movie...
For no reason, too.
Exactly. That's the thing I'll take from the ending, right? Is I think they say at one point, I think they're coming to a close on the other side, right? The Civil War.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's Podrick that says, right, they'll find something else to fight about.
Colin Farrell says, they'll figure it out in a day or two.
Right. They'll find something else, right?
Yeah.
To me being, sometimes there's just these lines in the sand. There's just fucking fighting. You can't trace it back, right? It's impossible to remember why. But something was done. Someone felt a fucking certain way about it. Actions were taken. And then it becomes this fucking self-fulfilling prophecy.
Right.
So 5 years down the road, I fucking hate that guy, And it's like, this is just kind of a condensed version of that. Right? Yeah. And there's no coming back from that. And I think that's a good thing. That line, I've still been trying to sort in my mind. Why does Podrick think this is a good thing? He now has nothing but a house full of fucking horse shit and animals. Right? What I think is that it at least lets him know exactly where he stands in the world.
I think that's the key. That
right or wrong, that's what he's saying.
That to me got to the core today. Like when I finished watching it last night and really I woke up and I actually woke up and rewatched the ending this morning because I was just like, I need to see this again.
It's kind of the one part that I still haven't clicked on.
It is a very cryptic, very, I think because the ending it happens just so suddenly. It's not this, and sudden's the wrong word because it's not the shocking things. And I think suddenly sometimes leads people the wrong way. It just happens. It is this
series of escalations. It's just a very matter of fact ending.
It is this modality that ends up being a okay, let's stand on the beach and talk one last time, essentially. And to me, where the crux of the whole thing is, and again, what it starts with, and this is probably one of my favorite lines in the movie is I guess we'll call it quits. He goes, you weren't in the house, so why would I call it? Him saying why the fuck do you think we're even? You killed my favorite donkey. I told you I was going to burn down your house, whether or not you were going to be in it or not, and you weren't in the fucking house. You killed something I love. All I did was burn down your fucking house.
Which is 90% cement, it looks like. He lost some puppets. He lost some puppets.
At most, he lost his fiddle that was completely useless to him now anyway. So it was one of those things
else he's
where
going to be fiddling on now.
I don't know. Just
not his dog, him. Don't
just
be gross.
Nubbing. It's one of those things where that line to me, that exchange right there is this reversal of, it's not reversal, sorry. It is the only moment you feel Colm's regretting anything. There is this twinge of regret, especially because after he goes to the priest, he's like, I killed a donkey, but it was by accident, but I killed a donkey. And the priest goes, why would God give a fuck about a donkey? And he's like, and Brendan Gleeson says, I fear he doesn't.
That's exactly the movie. Yes.
That's the fucking movie right there. Line. I fear he doesn't.
I fear he doesn't, and that's the point or the problem. However he says it, right? The fact that God doesn't give a fuck about that poor innocent little donkey. Right? But
that's it.
Again, at the end, it's Podrick, because this is one of the things she says, right? When Colin Gleeson is just or Brendan Gleeson's I just need him to be fucking quiet. I need him to not talk to me.
Right.
Right? And Podrick's sister just says, that's what Inisherin needs, another quiet man. Right? There
Yeah.
is an element to that, right? That Podrick is this kind of hopeful force.
Mm-hmm.
And Brendan Gleeson,
he's a
right
good
or
guy.
wrong,
He's
he
a good
makes
man.
this fucking decree. And Brendan Gleeson can't let it go. He's a nice guy who did nothing wrong, and he wants answers. Why is it wrong to be, I used to think being a good man was a compliment. Now when you say it like that, I think it's the worst fucking thing in the world.
Right.
He needs to do this. Through his pursuit, he essentially lost his sister, lost his friend, lost his fucking donkey, right? Even the fucking town twit is now dead.
All for the pursuit of why?
But what it is it's telling him, it's like, just shut down. Stop engaging with others. Don't give a fuck about others, right? Shut down. Worry about your little fucking square on the earth. Your kindness is drowned out.
Right.
Right? And so at the end, we see this full decimation of Podrick.
Mm-hmm.
And so that all works for me. It's just, it does feel like one of those movies where you're waiting for the payoff. And there just isn't one. It's just, this is life, man. This is just how it goes. Eventually, you just take shit, and one day you just give up, and you're just that classic adult who's like, I just got to survive today. Have a beer, go to bed, survive a day.
To me, the payoff in this movie is that at some point, to me, the payoff for this movie is that ending shot though, where Brendan Gleeson is mildly regretful. There is this thing where when he fires back, it's like it's not calling it quits just because you decide all of a sudden you're calling it quits. You've lost like all your fingers, and I burned down your house, but you killed my donkey, and you think this is like an even Steven thing. Like, I think that's the thing is interesting is like Podrick spends the entire movie trying to be a good guy, like we were talking about, like a good man. That's the speech that wins him the Oscar for would win him an Oscar for Best Supporting, even though he'll lose to Ki Hai Kwan. But that's fine.
Honestly, if someone's gonna win a Best Supporting, it should be Brendan Gleeson over Colin Farrell. I think.
Agreed.
They're both great in this movie.
Also, I don't know what category. I have not paid attention to the category they're nominated in. So.
I don't know who, because that's the thing. I think Colin Farrell's actually up against
Best
Brendan
Lead?
Fraser. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So, no, that's not true.
I think so.
He's supporting. No, because the Globes, he won a Globe, and then Austin Butler won the Globe for Best Lead Actor because.
Goddamn.
Oh wait,
Elvis.
I don't know why I'm talking about this. Sorry, I'm not up to speed.
Here, I'm pulling up the Oscar nominations right now.
But either way, like to me, that speech, at the end where that speech he gives in the Oscar speech that he gives in the pub and says like, I used to think being a good guy was as a compliment. Now it's the worst thing in the world.
Best supporting actor or best
supporting
lead actor. Lead actor.
Oh, best lead.
Yeah.
Okay, so he's
going to
lose,
and Brendan Fraser.
So he'll lose it to Brendan Fraser. Okay, cool. But
that's one of those, like when Toni Collette didn't get nominated for Hereditary, absolute fucking insult to the craft of acting. If Brendan Fraser does not win this year for The Whale versus this competition, there is no reason to have this award ever again. And I know that sounds stupid because every year the Oscars, quote unquote, fuck it up. It's just a chance to recognize movies that don't get the recognition. Fine. I do think Brendan Fraser, though, is like, there's ever been a Grand Slam someone should have won, it's this one. Neither here nor there about this movie. But it's Oscar week, so this is what we're talking about.
Right.
Well,
So
let's bring it back a notch, okay?
Sure.
Let's start here. I think the fucking impetus for this movie, it's just one of those perfect screenwriting moments where you go, God damn it, I wish I could do that.
It's a perfect conceit for a film.
The whole fucking movie starts with this old guy saying, I just don't like you no more. I don't want to be your friend anymore. It's a perfect start to a movie. It's so innocuous, and what that fucking becomes is insane. So let's start with Brendan Gleeson's character, Colin. He hits this point where he's old, he's feeling his existential dread, right? He decides, I don't want to hang out with this fucking dull farmer anymore and just fucking shit. Like, every day they all just go to the pub at like 2 or 3 p.m.
Yeah.
And he's like, I got shit to do. I got to record this fucking fiddle music because that matters, right? Like, there's that great point when he goes, you remember Mozart, you remember this. And then the sister checks him and she's like, you don't even remember what dates he did that. You were wrong, period. Right? But his thing is, he's like, none of this lasts. But great music, great poetry, something like that does. He's trying to add something to humanity before he leaves. I get that. I'm at that stage in my life. You're a creative guy. We both are pursuing creative endeavors, right?
I've been at that stage in my life since I was 18 years old.
There are actual moments where you're out doing something, right? Whether it's drinking, you're playing with your kid, and your brain's just going, you got work to do. Yeah. You have important work to do. And it's kind of a sickness, right? But there are times you're hanging out with people or friends, and they're in the same boat as you. They're like, I'm also trying to achieve something, right? Even something as stupid as the podcast we do. That takes a lot of fucking work. That takes a lot of time out of your schedule, right?
Well, what's interesting too, and I don't know, like, again, watching this movie, it's so funny. I was like, this is like sort of this microcosm of our lives. It's like, I think about, like, because I immediately thought about our pod, like the pod. Because this is a great movie.
Well, we both have one friend in particular we share that we don't have to name, but we both know exactly who we're talking about, where every fucking day you would meet this guy. It was, we got to make a plan. Like, as soon as work's over, we got to go here, we got to go drinking here. And you're like, I cannot give you 5 evenings of my life every week. I just can't. And it's hard, right? Because you want to be with your friends, you want to do stuff, but you're like, I've got shit to do. And we were in our 20s and I felt that. So I definitely understand where this old fucking fiddle fuck is feeling.
It's that. I think what's interesting, like, besides the existential dread, because this is, like, to me, the split between Colm and Podrick is like, Podrick likes his life. This is like the kind of crazy, this is kind of the interesting thing to me.
Podrick's just a happy guy.
Podrick's a happy guy. He likes his life. And Colm decides on a lark. Like, we have absolutely no idea why this came up other than just like he's
maybe Podrick talked for 4 hours about what his donkeys were shitting out.
His donkey shit.
And that was Colm's by the way, I can't anymore.
Actually, that probably be one of, that's probably I like laughed out loud at that line when he was like, well, it was pony shite, so you weren't even listening, were you? And I'm like, that's fucking genius.
the small details of this movie, like the scenes so like, are you round? I don't think we're round. You're round.
You're round.
Right? I mean, the writing is so, and with every Martin McDonagh movie, the writing is so fucking crisp. But besides just like the dialogue and how people interact, but the high brain concept of what this is.
Yeah.
This might be as effective a screenplay as he's ever written.
I mean, that's the thing. It is incredibly, because it's
In Bruges is a more funny movie, but this one is operating, it's so much, I mean, it seems so effortless.
It's deceptively simple. I think that's the thing, because like when people enter the movie, this is probably why I think some people did not like this movie. Now, granted, there are a lot of Irish critics who didn't like this movie because they thought it was like
that's
basically
a whole
playing
cultural thing that like I'm not.
There are some people who don't like this movie because because it is deceptively simple. Like, I think because the idea of not just wanting to be friends with anyone anymore is so odd. And without any reason, it's just a thing somebody said. Like, Colm says, I just don't like you no more. Like, there's no reason. He starts giving reasons, but all of them are reasons that are just like childish reasons. Like, oh, you're dull. I don't want to listen. I don't want to listen to you talk about pony shit. And you're like, it's fair. It's great. But the
totally
weirder thing about, I mean, I get it. But at the same time, that's all there is. Like, it's not this great thing. Like, you find out later on that he like fucked his wife or anything like that. Like, see that?
Dude,
that's like
so
the American
fucking
version.
Relatable though.
Absolutely.
How many times are you just out with your own friends and you go, "What the fuck?"
I have 2 or 3 of them now.
We've had this exact night 500 fucking times.
Absolutely.
Where Colm is full of shit, the most full of shit character, and he's like, "I'm gonna start chopping off my fiddle fingers."
Yeah.
Right? There's that great scene with the dog like pulls the shears away from him when Podrick.
Dude, oh my God.
It's so good. But his theory, right, is he's like, every time you fucking talk to me, I'm cutting a finger off my fiddle hand.
Right.
That's what's up. And I don't know if it's his fucking fret hand or his fiddle bow hand.
I believe it's his fret hand.
His fret hand. So he cannot make the fucking chords anymore.
Yeah.
If it was his bow hand, you could just tie the bow to your thing, and maybe, I don't know how to play fiddle, but I'm assuming you could still make some sounds, right? The idea that, because it kind of just exposes what's actually going on here, right?
Yeah.
Colm is hoping that by creating this great work of his, the Banshees of Inisherin, that his entire life, his love, his passion for his art, will be manifested in something that will bring him joy And if not that, will be hugely popular after he's dead. Which is one of those things that fucking drives me nuts because it's like, you won't care.
Oh, God, dude.
You literally won't care. And your kids probably won't care as much as they would care about you being around them, right?
I think
Neither
that's
here
like...
nor there.
But I agree.
Right.
That is the fallacy of
It's fucking
Colm's
insane.
thing.
But he's in full existential depression. I get it.
Sure.
The problem is when you start saying, the person who I have identified as the culprit for why I'm not getting work done, which is horseshit. I don't know what his job is, how he pays his bills. He just plays the fucking fiddle. Wake up a little hungover, right, at 11. You got 3 hours to fucking fiddle every day before you go meet Podrick to talk shit. Or you just tell him, hey, I'll meet you at 5. Right? You got your time. 6 hours of fiddle playing a day is probably good if you don't have a fucking job, which he doesn't seem to have.
Right.
So he's wrongly identified Podrick, it seems. Right? But what I think is going on is twofold. One, he despises Podrick for being just okay with what life has dealt them.
Right.
He thinks he deserves more and better, and it should mean something. And Podrick is the one that highlights to him how much that makes him mad, right?
Right.
Secondly, I think there's a bit of him that thinks by cutting his fingers off, by acting a fucking fool, because he does it after he finishes the fucking piece, right?
Yeah.
That somehow this will put him in that crazy island artist.
One finger's off.
But then he finishes it, cuts all the rest off.
Yeah.
Right? Chokes the fucking donkey, throws him at the door. The throwing at the door, by the way, amazing. But he does that because it'll add to the lore of the fat fucking fiddle player that went crazy, right? And possibly give him that extra thing. So I think he's full of shit on a lot of counts, even as it begins relatable. But dude, the finger hitting the floor, and he's like, I'm not going to throw it away. It'll get dirt on it. And he's holding the fucking finger. So good.
When
I
he
love the
comes
mechanic, but talk to me about Colm's headspace and his mission in this movie.
Colm to me this is like that. If you extrapolate it to like a metaphor that has to do with not the Irish Civil War, I would say like this has to do with the creative pursuit that most people deal with. Like people who are stuck in ruts, and I've been there. And we all sit there.
You've only adopted ruts. I was born.
I literally have a 2-bedroom apartment there. No, it's like one of those things where,
same.
For me, Colm is pursuing something that doesn't happen while you're living. Like Mozart, he uses Mozart as an example during his like whole speech. Like Mozart, everyone remembers Mozart. It's like, yeah, but that's Mozart. Like.
You remember like a picture of him, right? You don't remember the man or what he.
But to be that self-important, like here's like to me the idea of like making art that lives on. That's not something that you choose. That's something that the world chooses.
But do you all artist people are inherently
Of course, you have to have some form of grandiose self-obsession.
People
That's
need
fine.
to hear what I fucking say out of the 8 billion.
Yeah.
I'm the
that
one.
is part of entertainment. That's the lifeblood of entertainment, really, when you think about it, is how self-important people can be to put pen to paper, put, chords to music, like anything like that. Like there is a level of self-importance. Like people need to hear this from me.
Yeah.
All the world's a stage.
It's going
That's
to
part
be
of
important.
Right. To be so self-important, though, like I think this is because at first you think it has to do with I need to write this song, like I need to feel this. What I can't do is go to the pub every day at 2:00 and think that you're going to give a shit about what I have. Think that you give a shit that I'm making music because all you're doing is talking about donkey shite and I'm trying to make music. Like to decide that those two pursuits aren't necessarily like to devalue what Podrick goes through simply because you're making music and he I think are they dairy farmers, like sheep farmers?
Yeah, Podrick's some kind of farmer. He's raising animals, selling milk.
So to devalue somebody's work just because it's not as creative or maybe like existentially meaningful as yours is
he's just a guy with a 9 to 5. Like he's just a guy who's born
with a job
on an island, isn't miserable about it. He's just doing what he's supposed to do.
This is the same conversation I have with people who like when people find out what I do for a living. Like when I say, "Oh yeah, I work in unscripted." They're like, "Oh, reality." I'm like, "All right, I guess we're going to have that conversation. Are you going to talk to me about I've ruined whatever medium you're part of?"
But even more than that, right? It's yourself. When you talk to a non-creative industry person.
Yep.
Like my wife, I'm always having this like staring at her where she's just like, she always wanted to be a nurse. She always wanted to get married. She always wanted to have kids. And like, I just look at her and she's just happy all the fucking time.
Your wife is just a
even
good person.
with me as a husband, she's just happy, right?
She's a straight up Podrick.
Right. And so she
happy.
just like, when her day's off, she's just like, oh, I just got a day to do whatever the fuck I want and be happy. And I'm always fucking like, how the fuck does that happen?
Amy Griffey is the happiest person on earth. I've never met anyone
well,
who is happier.
You're welcome. You're welcome. No. But I'm saying, right? Like every time I have a day off, right? If I'm like, oh, I'm feeling rough this morning, I'll turn on a movie. Halfway through that movie, I'm like, you lazy piece of shit. You should be making your movies. Right. And it's like, it's just this fucking wicked curse in my brain. I have a full-time job. And we do this podcast, and I got all this other shit to do. But you're never doing enough. You're never enough.
Absolutely.
And so I so fully relate to that, the dichotomy of this movie. And it does. You do sometimes hold it against people because you see their happiness. And instead of being like good for them, you're like, you have to somehow justify why you are dealing with all of the shit you're dealing with by saying like they should want more. Why?
I have friends.
Why should they want more?
I have friends who have become very successful in this business and in other facets of the entertainment business, and literally have had to unfollow them because I'm upset with how much success they've had. Like it's the stupidest, most childish
the curse
thing ever.
Of, like being happy for your friends, but also subtly being like, you know what, fuck those guys.
Yeah, like everybody.
If you
whether
if you
you'll
lie
admit
and
it or
say
not,
you haven't felt that. Come on.
Everyone, you're a liar. Come on.
There's
Everybody's
a part of you
that.
that's like, that should have been me.
That should have been me.
The deal is to not let that take over. Get that out of your system and then just be happy for your friends.
Suck the poison out, move on.
It always
Don't
starts
cut your fingers
that way.
off for that shit.
It always starts that way if someone leapfrogs you.
Absolutely.
Always.
1000%. Always.
What sucks about this is Podrick's not leapfrogging anyone.
No. He just has a very judgmental friend.
Of everyone in the movie, it's like, why does it seem like it's so hard for people to just be around the nice guy?
Yeah.
Right?
Everyone seems annoyed with the guy who's just happy.
Like, be eaten up with the Civil War. He doesn't seem to be eaten up with Inisherin's boring. He doesn't seem to be eaten up with that he doesn't have that much money. Or he just has animals that shit in his house. Right? So you see that he's just a guy, like everyone else has all these other things, right? The cop is, a diddler and a fucking abusive piece of shit. Right. All these other, bartenders, whatever, they're all getting into everyone's shit. And it seems like they're worried about stuff. Except for fucking Podrick.
That
and so his,
fucking lady
his
at the
being okay
shop. God damn.
Makes everyone else mad at him.
Yeah.
Which
Mrs.
again
O'Riordan
is such a fucking relatable human experience.
Yeah. Mrs. O'Riordan at the shop is like the microcosm of the entire island, and you're like, can you mind your fucking business? Like at one
Literally,
point,
she
like
can't. She can't.
When Carrie Condon goes in, she gets the letter from the mainland offering her the librarian job. She was like, did this come open? Like, she's like, you fucking nosy bitch. What's the matter with you?
You piece of shit. You absolute piece of shit. This does lead me to a scene, though, right? Because we see the first slip of Podrick is when he spills on the cop, right? He's like, Dominic's at my house because you beat him with the tea kettle, you fucking diddler.
Yeah.
I think he exposed him as a diddler when him and Brendan Fraser's like, you'd rather hang out with this fucking diddler who fiddles with his son. Walk me through the scene where Colm picks up Podrick, who just got his ass whipped.
Wow.
And drives him home. And then stops when he starts weeping and goes his separate way.
Yeah.
Walk me through what's happening in that moment.
It is sort of like how the ending for you was not. This is the one scene in the movie that for me is not particularly clear. Because to me, it's like, it makes no sense. I guess it makes sense, but it's more just the why is still hanging for him. Like
Wrong.
The why is so.
He's overweight and he doesn't want to walk back. No, I'm just kidding. We know that.
I mean, I know that from my personal life that I would, rather drive up. I'd rather drive up the street to pick up my kid than walk to school.
I will fucking hang out with you during cardio. That's it.
I'll fucking hang out with you as long as I can drive there.
Other than that, we're rowing. If we're on our feet, we're rowing.
But there is this thing of like, this is the only way I could explain it to myself when I was watching it is, and tell me if you think this is anything. Do you think maybe because Podrick gets his ass beat down, do you think Colm's like, the only one who can really treat him that poorly is me because I was his friend and I'm the one who's like doing this? Like, I know that it doesn't necessarily make sense, but there is this like almost ownership of treating someone shitty. And that's like,
well,
we're at that point in the movie.
I don't know if I'd phrase it that way, but there's a sentiment in there I do like, right? Where he's like, I don't want to be around Podrick because I got these great brooding works to do, right?
Right.
I also think at a core level, he just sees this guy catch a raw deal and get beat up by a piece of shit, like a local piece of shit.
Right.
And so I think there's a bit, he's like, I'm rowing with him because I got fiddling to do. But there's no fucking reason for other people to be beating this guy's ass.
Right.
Right? And so I think there's this moment where, and again, it's kind of fun to track the movie through how much Colm is being honest with himself. And I think in that moment, he's just doing the decent thing. That's just a guy he shared 1,000 pints with, had 1,000 laughs with.
That's good. I like
that.
And
he sees this guy just fucking beat up in the dirt, and he's like, that's ridiculous. That's not okay. Yeah. I'll at least pick him up, dust him off. We don't have to talk. This doesn't change things. But that's fucking insane.
Right.
And so I think there's just a moment where and that's the other thing. I don't think in the movie he ever really hates Podrick.
No.
He's battling with himself. He's battling with himself. So much stronger. And Podrick is the external target he's chosen. Mm-hmm. And I think in that moment he's stepping off his own bullshit for just a scene. And I actually think it's a crucial scene in the movie. Right? I think it's a very important pivot.
Because it's getting to your point, which is that this isn't hate. It's literally just, I think he's boring. I don't spend time with him anymore.
I think it's self-loathing.
Sure. That's a good way
I think he's attacking his own inner, why are you not a famous fiddle rock star, whatever the fuck. Right? And it also is kind of interesting because that's where we see some honesty when, he starts crying, he just gets off and doesn't say anything and walks his own way.
Right.
The next time I feel like we have an integral scene on a cart is when he's telling the fucking fiddle student that his dad got hit by a bread truck on the main line. He goes, that's how my mom died. If it's the same guy, I'll kill him. And he runs away. And he even spills the tea about that when it seems like him and Colm might be back together.
Yep.
So again, it's, Colm having a moment of truth and then Podrick descending into this fucking madness and ruse. But I actually think that scene is crucial to the film myself.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's because there are two truths being spoken at that. It is... Right. To me, it's Podrick. It's not even Podrick telling, just not even spilling the tea. He's just saying what he did because he thinks it's hilarious. Like, what it is someone explaining that, hey, I think there's a chance we could be friends again. And that's Podrick, not Colm. Colm, to me, is the entire scene is saying, like, I can let my guard down for 5 seconds while you compliment my great work. Like, that's the other thing, too, is the music is complete. Mm-hmm. And he's like, yeah, I finished it. Aren't I a genius? Like, there is this, and that's that level of, when you send your script out for notes and shit like that, when you send it to friends and stuff, you're
a third of people read it, and then they're yeah, cool.
Make sure that you comment on what a genius I am while you read it. Like, those kinds of things. So there's that level to it from Colm. And then from Podrick's perspective is well, I'm really happy for my friends, but I'm really happy for my friend that he finished this thing. I also think that my friend might just come back because now he's out of his funk. He finished his magnum opus, so now I can talk to him like a normal person again. It's a very specific scene because then it's precipitated by the...
Well, because we have this, what seems like a normal kind of everyday thing. The fingers are such an escalation. Is where it becomes this fantastical movie version of a story.
Right.
The fingers are such a blatant escalation into the behavior set.
Right.
That also throws what Colm's doing into disrepute. Right? You're like, I think he's also full of shit. Maybe if he chops his fingers off, he won't have to fucking struggle anymore and pretend that his fiddling matters. Right?
Right.
He's also very full of shit. Why will Podrick not leave him alone?
I think because deep down Podrick still knows he's a good guy. And once, even though he says it's the worst thing anyone's ever said, he's like, but I want that to be a compliment.
Right.
Like, he wants that to be, being a good guy is something he wants to be. It's not till the end of the movie that he doesn't give a shit anymore. He wants to be a good guy. And I think that that's really kind of like that's where the rubber meets the road for Colm. Is like, Colm is annoyed that this is how I put it. Colm is trying to make this music. He's trying to better the world with his art. Podrick is just trying to be a better guy, trying to be a nice guy, trying to live his life, trying to be part of his community, so on and so forth. That's almost an affront to this creative endeavor that Colm seems to be on. And I think that what it ends up being is it's like an insult. So I guess that's where the escalation, escalation isn't even like, even in the word I'd use, it's this ascension to the top of the peak of insanity. Mm-hmm. Chopping off the rest of your fingers, just one is crazy, but the rest of them is just like, what at that point you're asking, what are you trying to prove? That's the part that like boggled my mind and was the thing that, and again, this is what Martin McDonagh does better than like anybody, is I asked that question and I also realized at the same time it almost doesn't matter. Like, the result is still the same.
Well, I think it's Podrick pursuing this kind of base thing he can't comprehend, which is, why is being good not enough? Why is me just being an okay guy not enough? And I don't think he can articulate it until the end of the film. And maybe that's what he means when he goes, and I think that's a good thing. Because now they're in a shared reality, right? He is an outlier until the end of the movie, right? He just cannot articulate why. And it's kind of like his sister, right? When he's just like, I got this great sense of time sitting on me. I can't. I feel it. Don't you understand? He's dull. And the sister just goes, you're all fucking dull. And I was like, yeah, we don't need another quiet man. You're all fucking dull. Like, get the fuck over yourselves. You're all fucking insane. And so, yeah, I think it's just that undescribable or indescribable. I have to know why I am broken. I feel happy. I seem good. Someone else from the outside is telling me there's something wrong, and that's confusing me. And I think that's also a very common struggle that we all deal with. Walk me through Barry Cohagen's character. Why is he in this movie? He's great. He's great in this movie.
He's very good.
There is a
You
question.
literally took the word out of my mouth.
Yes.
Like, it's not that he's not bad. I'm like, I like him.
Right.
I also don't know why he's
They're
in
filling out a tapestry of interesting characters.
Like, not to say that he's not great, but I also do not know why he's in the movie. Not to... Yeah. I don't want to take it away because he keeps winning awards for it.
It's a wonderful performance.
It's a great part. It's a great performance.
In this story, what value is this character adding to the story? What is Martin McDonagh trying to show us or illustrate with this kid? Who again is just like so fucking cavalierly dead at the end of the movie.
Yeah, it happens like...
He's just dead in a pond. And they say he slipped, but we know he didn't slip.
Did you rewind it? I was like, did I miss a scene? Sorry. Did I miss a scene? Because that was my thing. Like, I went through it and I was just like, I don't get this. I think that I think Barry Cohagen's character, is that how you say his name? Keegan?
Barry Cohagen? Yeah, I don't know. Cohagen.
Either way, I think Dominic is
Old
the
B-ho.
Character in the movie.
That's what we'll call him, B-ho.
Old B-ho is in the movie to, I think, show what real troubles are. Like, if you want to have an actual, if you want to have a real row, go look at that kid. That kid's
like,
living his life.
If my dad wakes up when he's having a wank, he's going to beat the shit out of us. And the guy wears his combat.
That shot when they walk into his house and he's just sitting there in his skivs and the hat.
Yeah. Just having an old wank. That's fucking priceless. That was fucking hilarious.
But I think what it is to say, look what the real problems are going on here.
I mean,
like,
they
do you really think
his
your
dad
stupid
is like
fucking
sexually
thing
assaulting
matters?
him.
Yeah.
He may have some, other issues that are unresolved, right? He might not have gotten an education, whatever the hints are, right?
Yeah.
He's kind of this pariah around town. Everyone shits on him. Because that's the other thing. Podrick in this character has a friend who's willing to be his friend. But he's a guy that no one values in the whole town. So even Podrick, who's the nice guy, has his limits with how nice he can be to this one fucking put-upon child.
Right.
It is kind of a baffling character. The scene with him that I'll always remember is when he sneaks up on the sister at the lake. Right? And he just goes, hey, would you ever consider, me, like when I was older? And she's like, no. And he goes, yeah, I thought not. And he goes, there's another dream dashed.
He's
perfect in that moment. Like that is like pinnacle.
Well, that's like the
acting
heartbreak. That's the heartbreak, and that tells you exactly what's going on with his character, which is like,
there goes that dream.
He doesn't want to be there at all. Like, being on that island is a death sentence, and unfortunately it ends.
Well, he's hoping for someone to make it okay, the way Podrick is hoping that Colm will make it okay, the way Colm is hoping that this fucking piece of music, the Banshees of Inisherin, will make it okay.
Right.
The way the sister's hoping that the fucking ticket to the mainland will make it okay.
I think what's interesting about the movie as a whole, everybody is waiting for something to happen that will make their lives not immeasurably better, but just
welcome
better.
To the fucking club. Characters in the fictional
like,
tale.
Yeah, right. The only person, but this is the important thing though, is the only person who actually takes agency is Shaban. She's literally the only character who's like, fuck this. Like, I am leaving. Like, and she again, you're right. She gives that great speech. She's like, all you guys are fucking boring. What makes you think any of you are any different from the rest of them? Like, you're just fucking dudes who sit around and drink at a pub.
Podrick, but she still also wants to get the fuck out of there.
Yeah. She knows. I think that's like, that's in a movie like this, where it's this like sort of fucked up Aesop's fable. There has to be one character who knows what's going on. And she's the only one who's living in the real world, so to speak. And I think that's a really important and key difference from her and all the other characters in the movie, because like just the first time the finger gets thrown against the door, when he brings it in alone, she's the only one who reacts the way you're supposed to react when you see someone's fucking finger thrown at your door. She freaks out. She's like, what the fuck? That is a key moment, how you know that Shaban is like, I don't need to be here anymore. Like, this is absolutely, it's not even like this is beneath me. It's like, this is too much. I would rather deal with the Civil War on the mainland than sit here and deal with this shit.
Well, there is this moment, right? This kind of paired moment that I love, which is he's talking to Colm.
Yeah.
Podrick is, and he's like, there are no Banshees in Inisherin. And he's like, yeah, maybe they're still there. They just don't scream to portend death anymore. They just sit back and observe, amused, right? Shaban is on the boat, right? She's leaving. She waves up at the cliffs at Podrick, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's another, like, shadowy cloaked figure next to Podrick.
Yeah.
And then when the camera cuts, right, it's like a profile of Podrick. In the background, we see the same shadowy, kind of black-clad figure.
Mm-hmm.
We never acknowledge it. On the boat, Shaban's face seems to drop a little as she's taking it in. And I thought that was this cool, it's kind of this weird, almost like supernatural moment within the film, right? Totally. Because that moment, and then even the old crone, right, kind of plays along.
That's what I thought. I thought it was the old crone.
It's almost as if the men in the story cannot fucking see the portents anymore. Right? There's no banshee to scream at them saying,
that's a great way to put
you're going too fucking far, right? They're not screaming anymore. They're just like, you fucking idiots. And so in that moment, it feels like the movie's telling us she's not going to do that for them. And that these men are just blind to how fucking insane and stupid this is getting. But yeah, I thought that weird shadowy figure, I thought was a cool touch. But then, it's like the crone staring at her from across the lake. Yeah. The crone is there when Barry Cohagen's character's found. Right? She's just kind of there a lot in these moments where, it seems like hey, choose a better path.
Yeah.
She's the one who
It's
sends
almost
Podrick
like this-
running at the start of the movie to go try to have it out for a second time with Colm.
Yeah. It's almost this Shakespearean,
Very
the
much
three
so.
witches thing. Like it feels very Macbethy,
Mm-hmm.
which is cool. But I like that. I think that this is something that Martin McDonagh, and maybe this is something that comes from a play perspective, because Martin McDonagh started as a playwright. Because like we talk about The Pillow Man all the time, which is like
Best
one
play
of
I've
the
ever
greatest,
read. My favorite play
one of
I've
the
ever
greatest
read.
plays ever.
Yeah.
There's a level of supernatural in playwriting that's really wonderful, and I think that to me is that aspect of it. And that's the thing that comes back from it.
What I love too is that the crone and the figure on the cliffs might be easily explained away.
Sure.
They're just presented in a way that lets our brain run amok.
I like that, and that's something that I really like is the unanswered question in Martin McDonagh stories.
We all have
Unanswered
ghosts in our
questions are
own
much
minds
more
and
interesting.
souls that are with us all the time.
Absolutely.
All the time.
It's just to me, look, it is probably the second best movie I saw this last year. Because again, I'm with you. Like Everything Everywhere All at Once blew me away.
R, The Menu, Brian and Charles.
Yeah.
There were some really great standout movies to me last year.
There were some really wonderful movies. I think what's interesting about it is it's not like I expected a Martin McDonagh movie to not be amazing or to kind of like knock me off my feet. And in a year where such great movies, like you said, came out, that's the really fascinating thing is it is like the second best movie I saw this year.
Right. Well, you expect it to be funny. You expect Brendan Gleeson and Colin Farrell to kill it.
Yeah.
I think there's so much more happening in this one that I appreciate. There's just this extra layer of sinking into the story. There's some actual real misery in this movie. I think that kind of stuff's important to contend with in our art. But again, it's delivered in this fun In Bruges style delivery. And the balance is always struck so well. Right? And, the scenes of him burning down his house, the scenes of him burying his feckin' donkey. Right? When he kicks the door down and you see him and Colm like, fuck, the donkey died.
Yeah.
And they have that moment where they're both just like, fuck. That's where Colm knocks out the fucking cop.
Mm-hmm.
She's like, his feckin' donkey died. Be nice. And then that leads him to the fucking, the confessional. Right? Where earlier he's like, do you like little boys? It's like, you fucking... He's like, you will be proper fucked. You will
Get
be
the fuck
proper
out of
fucked.
here.
Yeah. So later
Get the
they're in
fuck
the
out of
confessional,
here.
and he's like, I killed a fucking donkey, dude. I'm sad about that. He doesn't care about the mutilations and this and that. And he says what he says, right, is he's like, how's the despair? He's like, it's back a little. It's back a little.
Right.
And to me, it's just these men staving off despair, making these dumb actions because they're not reading the road ahead.
It's the commitment to shit behavior that I think is the most like, and we all do it. Like,
right. Where this shit behavior then can become an excuse for why you're not where you want.
Right.
Or the shit behavior is why we have another broken, miserable fucking guy who's now committing arson and crimes.
Right.
Right? Like another fucking broken, sad man who doesn't have just that joy to exist. I fucking love this movie. I love everything about this movie. I'm glad it exists and that I get to experience. I thought it was one of the best movies of the year. Of the nominated class, I think this and everything stands so far ahead.
Yeah.
I mean, Top Gun Maverick is good for what it is, but that's a mindless, just like fucking rah-rah, isn't it cool movie. Great movie.
Yeah.
But it doesn't do anything for the heart or soul like this one. You know what I mean?
This and Everything Everywhere All at Once are movies that it's not even about thinking. Because I think a lot of the time people are like, is the intellectualism of movies that are quote unquote Oscar bait is bullshit. Like, it's not
soul
about
for the food or food for the soul, right?
Exactly. This isn't, that's what I think is the most important thing about these kinds of stories is it's not about, like when we think about Oscar bait movies, my only thing I think about is like The King's Speech. I'm like, King's Speech to me is absolutely unabashed Oscar bait. It's
one of the worst movies that's ever won an Oscar.
It's about a guy who literally never had any problems And
oh man,
he
he's
stutters.
Just still a fucking prince that lives in a palace, and he's not struggling for a meal.
I think
if
that's
he
like the
doesn't
really
make that
important
speech,
thing.
Winston Churchill just does it better the next day.
Nothing would have changed
Yeah.
for that character had he not gotten better with his speech. Like he would have been fine. Winston Churchill, like that's the difference. Like you watch a movie like
we have
King's
a
Speech.
real bias against movies about how hard it is to be rich, though.
Yeah.
Like I think we have
Like,
a
you think
real
about-
bias towards that. Just
Like
us.
you think about King's Speech versus like a movie like Darkest Hour. You're like, okay, one is a guy who still's going to live in a palace at the end of this. The other guy is literally trying to make sure that the Nazis don't
right.
blow the fucking shit out of every single
Also
person.
rich, but like he's doing stuff.
He's doing stuff.
Yeah.
This is a year of movies, and the thing that I really liked about particularly Banshees and Everything Everywhere is this is about soul food to me. Those are those stories about these are these stories about soul food. Banshees is a little different than Everything Everywhere All at Once, obviously, but that's what you want in this kind of year of movies, is movies that are gonna not necessarily, they don't have to make you think, they just make you feel.
It should
That's pretty
make
awesome.
you connect somewhere on your. I'm trying to look up what the fuck was up with the King's Speech. Motherfucker. I don't know what movies were up in 2011. Oh, 127 Hours, Black Swan, The Fighter, Inception, The Kids Are All Right.
The fact that
Every single
Black
one of those
Swan
movies, barring
should've
Inception, is so
Don't
much
start
better
that.
than The King's Speech. The
Yeah.
fact that Black Swan did not win that award,
insane.
fucking disgusting. Fucking sickening. No, but this is one of those things I argue with people too. Because they're like, if you like to debate what Oscar should have won and your movie never wins, why do you like it? That's a feature.
Right. Well, this is why
that's a feature, not a bug.
Right.
Right? It's like baseball players. That's why we argue Michael Jordan versus LeBron James. There will never be a right answer.
Right.
It's fun to talk about.
This is why I choose not to invest much time in awards, because a lot of the time, the other flip side of that conversation is I don't like arguing with people who only think they're right. Like there's no conversation to be had.
That's
with
everyone.
that. I agree,
That's
which is why I don't talk about the
everyone on
which is
Earth.
why I don't talk about award shows with anybody but you, because you're the only person I'm willing to have that I'm right, you're wrong conversation
Right.
with most of the time.
That's
why we do this podcast.
Are a night that celebrates the idea, the concept of making a movie, the
Except for
magic of
the year La La
the
Land got
magic that a
nominated.
movie's made well, right?
Right.
There's a lot of horseshit that goes along with that. I'm accepting that. I'm giving that to the opposition. I like to sit and have a night where it's just like, fuck, man, movies are still worth it.
Yeah.
Right?
Agreed.
Movies are fucking still worth it. So that's it for the Banshees of Inisherin. What a great movie. For our other movie this week, we have chosen Everything Everywhere All at Once. If you have not seen either of these two movies, please treat yourself to that.
Yes.
If you want to hear more from us, help support the show, help keep the show going, please treat yourself to our Patreon, patreon.com/FilmAlchemistPod. It would mean the world to us if we could grow this thing, keep it going. So thank you guys for your support. The YouTube Film Alchemist, the email filmalchemistpod@gmail.com. We're on all the socials. Make sure you leave those 5-star ratings and reviews wherever you find us. And please, especially this one, man, it's in. Everyone's talking about the Oscars. Send an episode to a movie-loving friend. See if they dig us. We'll take it from there. We appreciate your guys' help and support, whatever form it takes. Thank you for spending time with us. We'll be back on Thursday with Everything Everywhere All at Once. Easily the best movie of 2023. It ain't even close. So I can't wait
Agreed.
to talk and gush about that movie. Bye!